This is my second podcast episode of the Deep Rooted Self Love podcast. I actually wasn't even planning to give this a name yet, but on Spotify, you have to give it a name. So, this is the name. So, today, first of all, I just want to wish everyone a happy new year. And I hope you had a great start into the new year. Maybe you participated in my masterclass. If you did so, I was very happy to see you there. It was such a lovely group, and I'm just so happy about the community that I've built over the past years. So, if you're here, you're probably wanting to bring love into your life. And if you are listening to this podcast, if you have been following me on Instagram, maybe you're watching this as a YouTube video, it's very likely that you have struggled with finding love that sticks in your life, having a relationship that sticks, having a relationship that makes you feel fulfilled and happy, where you don't feel like you're settling, or maybe you've even struggled to have a relationship in general. A lot of my clients come to me and they always get stuck in situationships, which is actually how it was for me a couple of years ago when I started this journey. And if you want to hear more about that, you can listen to the last podcast episode. And what I see here is oftentimes a lot of women, especially, who settle for situationships and who settle for always being with people for whom they are not the one, and for whom they are not the special one that this person wants to be with. And before I get into all of this, I just want to say you are so worthy, and you're worthy of everything that you want in a relationship. And I can say this with all my heart. I've worked with so many clients now who are struggling with exactly these things. And on top of that comes people pleasing, putting other people first, not being able to shine your light, which was what the masterclass was actually all about. And I just want to say you can get through this and you can come out on the other end and be the main character of your life, because you deserve to be the main character of your own life. And I feel like a lot of in these podcasts, I'm probably going to talk a lot about myself because, it's just me here by myself. And I also, in one way, I kind of see it as a beautiful way of sharing more about myself and my journey with my clients, actually. Because in the client session, of course, we talk a lot about the life of my clients and I ask a lot of questions and a lot of guidance. But I do believe that there is so much worth in having someone tell their story and listening to their story. And that is actually why I'm trying to keep these podcasts flowy. And I got a lot of good feedback about it. And I feel like that's really what a lot of people are looking for these days, is just this authenticity and just real stories that are expanding your subconscious, right? Because what is happening if you are hearing a story of someone who went from people pleasing, from never being the one that's chosen, from never being the one that is fully loved, to being in a relationship where they are the one for the other person, they're the one for themselves most of all, is really great for your subconscious, because then your subconscious knows that it's possible. And how that works, I don't know if I talked about this in the last episode, but I'm going to talk about it now. There's this phenomenon. It also happens a lot with athletes, actually. I can't give you the exact example right now who it was, but it was something with like sprinting, I'm pretty sure. And there was this world record of sprinting, and people could not get over this world record. And the one time when someone actually broke the record, all of a sudden everyone started breaking the last record, if that makes sense. So they didn't break the newest one, but they broke the in-between phase. So, and that just shows that when you see someone doing it, then you know it's possible, and then you can make it happen. And all of this is already like kind of going into manifestation. But in the end, like, I do believe that my work is connected to manifestation as well. And I basically help my clients manifest love into their life. And if you've known me for a while, you know that I strongly believe that the love that you receive from other people is only a mirror of the love that you give yourself first. And again, I had that example so strongly, and I think I might actually pick up on where I left off on the last podcast. So last podcast, I spoke a lot about my biggest heartbreak that I went through when I was 19 to 21, stretched out a little. And and that I came to this conclusion that I really had to love myself first, and then I did all the shadow work, I did all the inner child healing, all the work that I kind of now put into 6 month coaching packages I gathered over 3 years long, and that helped me to be the person that I'm now, that helped me to manifest the relationship that I manifested now. And also, what's important to say is I love my partner so dearly, but I know that it all stems from me first. If I wasn't loving myself, I couldn't have the relationship that I have now. And I also know that for right now, we're so in love and we're so happy, and he's just an amazing person to have in my life. But I also know that that might change in the future. And of course, that's not a nice thought to have, don't get me wrong. But I'm just saying, I feel like when you get to the point of knowing how to manifest love into your life, how to keep your own self love so high that you won't accept anything that's beneath that, you know you can always do it again. And that automatically makes your relationship better as well. So, what I actually wanted to talk about quickly is that something that we talked about in the masterclass is what energies do you want to bring into 2024? And if you've done some other like New Year's resolution things and all of that, it's very likely that the feelings weren't in that. And when I talk about energies, I mean the feelings. And I can just speak about myself here because, again, I just think it's really helpful. Is one of the or my energies that I want to call in this next year, or that I want to align with, are lightness, freedom, it's inspiration, intuition, and lightness. Did I say lightness already? I think I said it already. Well, and especially lightness is such a big part, and it's just constantly reminding myself that I don't need to make things harder than they have to be. And for me, that looks like, recording this podcast episode today, even though I feel a little bit tired and I feel a little bit nervous of, it's my second podcast episode. I feel like I need to make it perfect, and it's definitely not going to be perfect. And that's totally going to be fine. And really bringing that lightness in there. Or today I went on a 40-minute walk, instead of making to-dos into my day that don't need to be there. Because that's a funny thing, right? The universe is almost like testing you and being like, okay, you want lightness in your life? Are you going to be able to sit in that? Are you going to be able to sit in that peace? So that is something that I'm practicing right now. And maybe that inspires you as well to see, where do you want to bring which energies into your life? So some of my other clients, they said that for them, they want to bring the energy of home and feeling at home into their life. So making their home nice, feeling peace in themselves, in their bodies. Then there was acceptance, was a big one. And there's different ones that you can align with. And I think it's just important to ask yourself now, like, close your eyes for a moment if you're not driving, and just take a few deep breaths. You can breathing in, bring your hands over your head if you like, and breathing out, hands down. Breathing in, hands above your head. And breathing out, down. One more time, breathing back in. And breathing out. And feel your nervous system relax here, arrive in your body in this moment. And then from here, just bring up your next level self in front of you. Maybe it's your highest self, your next level self. Imagine yourself 1 year from now. And imagine how it is to look back at the life that you've just gone through, the year that you've just gone through. How do you want to look back at this life? How do you want to feel in that year while you're at work, while you're creating, with your family, with your friends? How do you want to feel in relationships? And how do you want to feel just with yourself? Just follow your instinct here. Don't make it more complicating than it needs to be. And just feel into those feelings that you're wanting to align with in 2024. Maybe it's love, maybe it's home, peace, spirituality. And then just intensify those feelings for a moment here. And then see how these feelings play out in that life of your next level self. What activities, thoughts, people align with those feelings, with those energies? And then slowly come back here, start wiggling your hands, your feet, roll your shoulders back. This is just a little exercise. I'm super spontaneous, so I hope that helped you. I'm sure that there's someone out there that needed to hear this. Yeah, so for the people who didn't join the masterclass, I just wanted to give that to you because I honestly, I'm just preaching that to all my friends right now, to all my clients, my friends, my partner, family, because I just think it's so important to align with feelings more so than with certain achievements or certain numbers or a certain amount of money that you want to make, a partner that you want to manifest. It's really more about the feeling that's behind that, and when you lead with the feeling, everything else is going to follow as well. And we could go much deeper now in what is holding you back from feeling those feelings, but that would go too deep into coaching, and I would need you to be here for that. So, but still, I think that's a really good way to start. Okay, so that's just what I wanted to start with. But going back to where I left off last time. So, after this relationship with the first big love of my life ended, I really focused on myself and I really healed myself. And I went through a lot of different dating experiences. And at some point, I noticed that I always chose two different kinds of men. And they were either people who would appreciate me, who would be consistent in their affection, who would be psychologically healthy, who would, appreciate me, who would see me for my full potential, and who would be ready to love me, but who I would not be sexually attracted to. Or I would attract the opposite. Everything else wasn't there, no consistency, no psychological stability. There was no real appreciation or interest for me. Maybe you've experienced this yourself. Like, this is such a common thing that I hear from my clients. And again, I think this is something that resonates with a lot of people. Like, I see this a lot. Those are like typical characteristics of things that are happening. But I think it could be different for everyone, right? Like, you could have different non-negotiables, I would say. Well, and that actually brings me to the main point. I had that realization. I think I was in Paris at the time. And I remember being in my kitchen and being like, why? Like, why is it always the same thing? Why do I always like have fall in love with these people that aren't really giving me what I want, but I have this crazy sexual attraction? And then I meet these other people who I don't have any sexual chemistry with, but they give me everything that I think I want. And that's when I wrote down my 6 non negotiables. And those for me were emotional availability, consistency, sexual attraction, appreciation, and exclusivity, also an important one. And again, those could look different for you, but I think what is really important to figure out, what is your main pattern. And I'm actually going to work on a workshop for that, like an online workshop on helping you to figure out your patterns so you can change them and avoid them, because we often fall into the same trap, right? I heard the other day someone saying, like, you always date the same person with a different face. Yes, if you don't recognize your patterns and if you don't solve them. And again, this is where I just can't say it enough. Like, this is where hypnosis is just so fucking helpful, because you can literally rewire your brain. And also, okay, and also a big part of that is also we oftentimes attract partners from that are similar to people in our upbringing that hurt us, that mistreated us, that didn't give us the attention that we want, because we're trying to find a corrective experience, right? So you might choose men or women that are very similar to your dad or your mom in the way that they are not really being emotionally available, that they're not really giving you their full attention, and so on and so forth. And you might choose these people, you might choose narcissistic people if you grew up with a narcissistic parent, in order to prove to your inner child that it's different this time and that you are loved this time, when really you just need to start choosing different people. And again, this is why sometimes it bothers me, like in the self-love industry, and that's why I actually had a problem for a while to call myself a self-love coach, because I was working with a coach, like a business coach, and she was saying to me like, what you're doing is self-love coaching. I was like, no. It's relationship coaching. And yeah, because I honestly think in the industry of self love coaching, there's so much just like bubble baths and saying affirmations to you. And if you think about it, if you look at your relationship as a mirror of your own self love, that would be like having a relationship where you go on nice dates, but there's no true intimacy, there's no true acceptance, there's no true love and deep love for the other person, right? Because just doing bubble baths is, yeah, it's a nice activity and it's for sure going to make you feel good. But if the deep rooted level isn't healed and in alignment, it's not going to lead to deep rooted self love. And this is where I think self love in combination with hypnosis is so, so, so helpful, right? Because if you think about it, even though it is quite an overused term these days, I make it my mission to kind of rewrite what that actually means for people, right? To rewrite the meaning of self-love, because in the end there's a reason why self-love is such an overused term, because self-love is beautiful and self-love is what you need in order to lead a happy and empowered life in which you take up space, have healthy relationships, right? But it's not what you see online a lot of the times. And the way you do that is you look at the things that are holding you back, right? Like the way I work with my clients, it's almost always the same. That's why I'm like now offering 6 months packages and not just 3 months packages anymore, because I see it the same way every time. They come to me and they're like, I want to, like, have a healthy relationship, or I want to have healthier friendships or whatever. And the first 3 months, all we do is focus on rewriting the beliefs that they picked up from childhood, right? Rewriting the beliefs that they're unlovable, rewriting the beliefs that they're not enough, rewriting the beliefs that they're lazy, that they are dumb, that they're unable. In German, it's unfähig. I don't know, like if it makes 100% sense in English. But because if you don't look at the parts of yourself that you don't love first, you can't heal and you can't really truly love yourself, because you're constantly running away from a part that you know is part of you. And for the people who don't know shadow work, it's a bit hard to explain when you haven't done it. I'm going to try to. You can imagine you come to this world and you are being born into this beautiful castle that is your personality. Just imagine the most beautiful castle. Like for me, it's like super colorful and it's really shiny and sparkly. And this castle has different rooms, right? It has, let's say, a balcony, it has the living room, a beautiful sleeping bedroom, but it also has the toilet, the cellar, and maybe another toilet. And you cannot have the castle functioning without those rooms that you consider not nice or not pretty being in there as well. And that's how you can imagine it with shadow work, basically. If you have everything in yourself. Everyone has everything in myself. Like I have a part to myself that's dumb, that's lazy, that's, I don't know, ugly. But I also have a part to myself that's beautiful, that's ambitious, that's smart. And that is totally fine. And The problem though is, and I did that for most of my life, I was so afraid of coming across as lazy, or I was so afraid of coming across as not intelligent, that those parts owned me and not the other way around. And how that shows up, I always use this example of the person that is lazy or that is afraid of being lazy. They will go and complete overworking, and they won't allow themselves to rest because they're so afraid that people and they themselves will see that they're lazy. So, and what you do, going back to the going back to the castle example, over time, people come over to your castle and they're like, "Ooh, this room is ugly," and you feel a lot of shame. Shadow is always connected to a lot of shame. You feel a lot of shame and you lock the room and you throw away the key because you don't want anyone to find out that that room is part of you, right? Like, again, seeing your room, that room as part of your personality. So let's call that part dumb. Or someone else comes over and again changes one of your rooms and you're like, oh, I'm feeling so embarrassed, locking it, throwing the key away, and so on and so on and so forth. Maybe you go to someone else's castle and you're like, they don't have the room that I have, maybe I shouldn't have that room, lock it and throw it away. And what happens is that you end up just living with like 2 or 3 rooms of your beautiful castle, because in the end, and this is the part that I feel like doesn't come across as easily if you don't work with your own shadow part, but every shadow has a gift in itself. So again, using the shadow lazy, the gift in being lazy is self-care, is rejuvenation, is going inward. The gift in being dumb sometimes. And again, you can imagine the smartest person that you can imagine, and I promise you that person has a moment in their life where they feel dumb and where they are dumb, because that's just the nature of us humans. We all have everything in us. And going back to the gift of being dumb, the gift of being dumb is having moments where you can still learn, right? Being curious about life, being a student throughout your life. Like, that's a whole other topic. But if you think about our school system and our society in general, like, we are taught to go to school, learn something that someone else tells us to learn, right? That everyone needs to learn. And then you go off and maybe study or in university, and then you're done. Like, you don't learn anything anymore. Like, how sad is that? And when you on top of that have the shadow of being dumb, you don't even want to learn anything more because you're so afraid of coming across as dumb or stupid because you don't know that yet. And that is the downfall of the shadow aspects when they have a power over you, because if you're so afraid of being dumb, you won't learn anything new because you just want to pretend that you're smart in everything that you've learned so far. I hope that makes a bit more sense. So that's one part of how I work with my clients in getting deep-rooted self-love in their life. Because really, guys, like, I cannot explain the freedom you feel when you've integrated those shadow parts in yourself and you're just like, call me dumb, call me lazy, call me ugly, I don't give a shit. Like, I feel great about myself. And I know that that's part of me, and I know that that's part of you too. And I know that part of me is also being beautiful and smart, and I know that that's also part of you if you just let it be. That's the next part of shadow work as well. Whenever you judge someone, that's something that you don't allow in yourself, or you judge in yourself already, right? So watch out for that as well. If I was you in general, I would make a list of shadows, things that you feel ashamed of. Like, the way you can imagine it is if someone wrote a newspaper article about you, and in the headline it would say, I don't know, Jessica is whatever that is, what belongs in there. What is the worst thing that someone could write in there? And that's your first shadow that you should work on. So, and then inner child healing. And I think a lot of people probably heard about inner child healing already, but it is so important to look at your childhood and what patterns you picked up from there. And I think I honestly don't like to use like the word trauma so much, because sometimes I feel like it undermines the bigger trauma some people have gone through. I feel like people like throw around the word trauma and toxic like whenever they can these days. But in the end, there's also like small traumas, right? Or in the end, who's who to decide what is a big and a small trauma? We're all different sensitivities. We are all like, yeah, different humans with different experiences, and we're all affected by different things in different ways, right? but most of us didn't have the perfect childhood. It's almost impossible, right? Because our parents are also not perfect, but what we can do is we can heal those wounds. So again, like one of the most common examples is that your emotional needs weren't met, but your physical needs were met, right? So you had a house, you had food, but maybe you never had parents who actually asked you how you are. And that's again something that's so common, people being disconnected from their emotions. And your emotions are so important, guys. Like, they're so important. Again, I spoke about this in my last podcast episode already, of me being disconnected from my body, from my emotions, and reconnecting with that. And I think all my clients that have worked with me can sign that as well. I don't know if you say that in English, sign that, but they can probably, yeah, support that as well. It's just your biggest compass. Like, if you don't have your feelings guiding you, what do you really have, right? Like, you will never have all the information that you need in order to make a decision. So your only possibility and option is actually following your instinct, your feelings, your intuition, which is directly connected to your subconscious, right? And that's again what we do in inner child healing. And you can actually do my inner child healing hypnosis on my website for free, still at the moment. You go into the feelings, because a lot of us have had experiences. Like, for example, for me, my dad died when I was 8, and for the longest time I barely had any memory actually of that time, because I disconnected so much from the situation, right? That's where a lot of people get ADHD from, actually, when the reality is so painful that you have to disconnect. Because as a child, you can't fight, you can't flight, really, you can't run away because you're a child. Where are you going to go? So a lot of us disconnect and dissociate, so freeze. And what you can do with inner child healing and with hypnosis especially, you go back into those memories and you give yourself what you didn't get at the time. So for example, me, I really didn't get any grieving. I had to go right back to school, I had to function and all of that. And this is maybe a bit of a more heavy example. Again, those can be really small examples. Or what I also have a lot, which is really interesting. I don't really know why I'm attracting that into my coaching so much, but I feel like every other person that I work with has been bullied as a kid or has experienced bullying. And honestly, that is one of, like, that has such strong impact on your life when you don't do the healing around that. Because what happens is, you either, at least from my experience, what I've seen is people either go into completely over people pleasing, right? They do everything to be liked by everyone. They completely neglect their own needs because they learned they need to be liked, otherwise they're unsafe, right? Physically, emotionally. Or what I see is they don't trust anyone, right? They have this guard around themselves of, I don't trust anyone, I can only trust myself, I always have to be on edge to be protected. And a lot of these clients that I work with, especially with the second category, they want to find deeper connections in their life, right? How are you going to find deeper connection if you always feel like the person is going to have, like, it's going to one up you or is going to hurt you? So again, is another thing that you can just beautifully heal in hypnosis and with inner child healing. And the way that works, maybe for the people who've never done hypnosis or have never done inner child healing, is, right, you go into the hypnosis, you feel all the feelings, do the grief work, the supported grief work, right? Imagining yourself just crying, feeling the feelings, and having the support from your parents. Because a lot of people that have been bullied as kids, they didn't actually have the support from their parents. And maybe their parents were overwhelmed actually by the whole situation, felt helpless themselves, so they might have even blamed their kids for, like, of course, of course the kids are not going to be nice to you if you're like that, which is honestly the worst thing that you can say to a kid that's being bullied, because they already feel like it's their fault, and it's not. Lost my point. And so you go into that and you have the grieving, the supported grief. and then you override it with a beautiful experience, with being in community with other people and being loved and seen for your unique talents, for your uniqueness. And the more often you repeat that hypnosis, and that's the thing, like in the coaching with me, you get between 2 to 4 tailored hypnoses that you can use for the rest of your life, because hypnosis mainly works when you do it in repetition and with emotional intensity. So the more you do it, the more your brain makes new pathways of, I can trust the world, I can trust the people in my life, I can trust to let new people into my life. So that's another example of how inner child healing can work beautifully. And yeah, and the reason why I'm saying all of this is just to make my point of self-love is not just bubble baths and affirmations. And I love affirmations, guys. Like, I write my affirmations in my journal every single day of things I want to manifest, that I want to bring into my life. And yeah, it's all great, but you can't put glitter on top of your shit, right? You have to get rid of the shit before you can put glitter on something, because otherwise you just have shit with glitter on it, and I don't think you want that. So that's the main point actually that I wanted to make today. And yeah, and just allow yourself to feel your feelings, right? I think during self-love or with self-love, it's just like you have so much toxic positivity. I don't know if you've guys seen it, but there's this video that like a lot of people make on Instagram and on TikTok, wherever, where you have like where parents show their kids like this container of water, and that has like something dark in there. They put like, I don't know, some color in there that's dark, and they're like, okay, these are your bad thoughts. And then they take fresh water, like clean water, and put it on top, and keep pouring the fresh water until the dark water is clean, and in order to show their kids like, this is how you get rid of bad thoughts, by just putting more positivity on top. And guys, no, that's so unhealthy. That's not dealing with your shit, right? That's just, it doesn't work like that, because the bad stuff is still there. You have to get down to your subconscious, and you have to release it, and you have to heal it, and then you can put all the beautiful fresh new thoughts on top, right? And I think a lot of people are probably listening to that and are like, yeah, I think that really resonates with me, because I have tried the positive thinking, I have tried the positive affirmations. And this is, again, something that I love working actually with people who've done therapy before. And I think therapy is great. But I think what oftentimes is missing in therapy is the actionable steps of how to really change your life. Like the amounts of people who said to me, like, I understand all my stuff. Like I've been to therapy. I understand how my dad's relationship is affecting, or how my relationship with my dad is affecting my relationships now. I know how my jealous sibling is affecting the way I am not able to fully shine in my light without being afraid of getting punished, or not liked or whatever, but they don't know how to change it. And I think that's just sad. Like, it's great to know where your stuff comes from, but I think we're living in an era, or in a world now, where a lot of people have a lot of understanding for themselves, and I think that's great. But you have to be careful to not just identify with your trauma, with your shit, right? Because you can heal it, and you can have a happy life, and you can have the life of someone who didn't have the experiences that are impacting you now. And for that, you just have to heal on a subconscious level. And nevertheless, I still love exercises. And I think if you're listening to this, this is a great exercise. If you, besides the hypnosis, is writing a list of all the things that you love about yourself. And again, like sometimes the simplest stuff is very effective. That is like, I love that exercise, really. That's one of the exercises that I give all my clients. But again, in tandem with hypnosis, right? Together with the healing. And whether you do hypnosis, EMDR, I don't know, whether you do energetic work, just do it, right? Just deal with your stuff, because otherwise it's always going to have a control over you. All right, I got a bit deep and a bit darker. I didn't really want that to happen, but I guess that's part of it. And also, that's also something I want to say. Something that, like, one of my clients that is working with me now, before she started working with me, she said to me, like, I'm a bit afraid of like the stuff that's going to come up. I've done therapy, and like it's just like it just brought her through like a really dark time. And the thing is, though, the difference when you do the work with me that I do is, yeah, you look at your stuff, and of course, there's going to be feelings that are going to come up. And like part of like the work that I do is oftentimes giving my clients like grieving rituals as a homework. But when you do the hypnosis, you're able to release it. Like the amounts of times like clients message me and like, I was able to release this thing that I never thought I could release. I can't even count, right? And even from my own experience, right? Like what is something that because I'm still doing the work, right? I feel like when you start with the deep rooted self-love work, like you're going through like some major big clumps in the beginning, especially with the shadows. And then you have that done, and then you're at a level of self-love that is just very beautiful and very helpful. But from there, the more things you want to call into your life, the more things are still going to be in the way, blocking you from getting to that next stage. And also, like sometimes you just go through phases where you're more ready to release certain things than in other phases. And for me, a huge, huge part was that I had to go through in the last year was being too much and not being important. Those were like huge shadows that I had to work through. And the fact that I can just like say that right now without feeling anything means so much. And yeah, and the way that was holding me back, or where it actually stemmed from, is me having so many experiences as a child when I was praised, or when like especially adults really loved me and really like thought I was like, I don't know, great and smart and whatever, that other people got jealous. Like I would have a lot of actually parents of friends that would really like adore me, and then my friends would get upset with me. And that's just as an example of something that doesn't sound traumatic. It's not traumatic, but it still affects you, and it still affected me in the way that I felt like now I wasn't able to really shine my light, right? Like I'm naturally such a bubbly and talkative person, and I would go into situations with other people and I would talk a lot, and I would come home and feel so guilty, and I would feel like, oh my God, did I take up too much space? Did I talk too much? They're probably going to think that I'm like full of myself or whatever. And after integrating those shadows, I'm like, yeah, no, that's totally fine. Like, it's great to shine my light. That's what I'm here to do. And the more I shine my light, the more people are going to learn from me. I probably wouldn't even be recording this podcast if I hadn't integrated that shadow together with the inner child healing. And also on the other side, I integrated being unimportant, right? Because this is the thing, oftentimes when you have one shadow that is unintegrated, you also have the other side unintegrated, right? You have on one hand, you have being too much, and then you have on the other hand, you have unimportant, and it's about coming into that balance. And that's where I had to get to, because when you don't have unimportant integrated, right, then you might actually try to make yourself more important than you are in certain moments where it's just not your place and it's not your time. And I definitely did that. And just to give that as another example, maybe that helps some people. Yeah. So just to end this, I actually don't know how long this already is. I'm trying to keep these short because I know for myself, and you can give me feedback on that, how it is for you. But I know for myself that with like people who are starting new podcasts, people who I don't know so well yet, I oftentimes like to listen to them when they're just a bit shorter, because I don't feel like it's just this chunk of like information from someone that I just don't know yet. So yeah, let me know how that sits with you, and let me know how you like this. I know this is again like a very stream of consciousness, and again, I think I like to listen to these podcasts, but let me know if you want more structure, if there's anything in particular that popped out for you. I haven't 100% decided what my podcast is really going to be about. Of course, it's all going to be in the realm of self-love coaching and self-love and deep-rooted self-love that brings you healthy relationships, that allows you to take up space and lead your life with a place of empowerment, from a place of empowerment. But yeah, what that actually means, we will see. I'm probably also maybe going to have some people on here. I'm going to ask some clients if they want to be on here. Not sure if they do, because I feel like that's like very, very personal stuff that you talk about. And yeah, I never name the names of my clients out of course, keeping it confidential. but maybe there's a few people who want to be in there. Or if you're open to actually having a shadow session with me or an inner child healing session with me, and that being like recorded, maybe even without video and just like as a podcast without showing your name, let me know. Maybe I'll give that away as a free session to just, yeah, show people how it works, because I really think like shadow work and inner child healing is just the best thing that you can do for yourself and for your self-love. And yeah, and also right now I still have my New Year's special going. Right now you can save up to 222 euros on my coaching offer. So I have a 3-month coaching program and a 6-month coaching program, and included is my self-love circle that I have once a month, which you can also sign up for separately. I will link it below. And you get hypnosis, tailored hypnosis, and you get access to my hypnosis and deep meditation library. There's like tons of meditation and like hypnosis in there that you can work through. And whenever my clients feel like they need extra support outside of the pre-recorded, you always get a tailored hypnosis. So there's never too little hypnosis or meditations. And yeah, and you get full-on WhatsApp support every day of the week besides the weekend. You can send me voice messages, and of course there's weekly coaching sessions in there. If you're interested in that, feel free to book yourself an alignment call in the link in my bio, where I always give away a free first alignment call to get to know me, ask questions so I can see how I can help you. And of course, if I can help you, sometimes maybe I'm not the right person. And yeah, I wish you a wonderful start into the day when you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to this. And I'm just so happy that you're here. And I hope that you took something away from this that helps you, and have fun aligning with the energies of 2024. I highly recommend just putting your energies that you want to align with as the background of your phone, or like putting it onto the wall, so you can always realign with that in each and every moment.